tear that dear old building down. There's not another like it in the country or the town.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1468 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the Dome. Join the club and purchase a membership today at mapleleafsbaseball.com. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning Moneris podcast hosted by FOTM Al Grego. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut is Jeremy Hopkin. Welcome, Jeremy.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
We did meet previously at TMLX 14 at Palma's Kitchen, and it was a great conversation. I have to admit, that's the first time I realized there was this J-Ho character, Jeremy Hopkin, and I was intrigued from the get-go. And since then, I have seen you on the live streams at live.torontomike.com, and you're like, you pay attention, you're engaged, you are sharing fun facts in real time that amuse me personally. So I just want to say what a pleasure it is to finally have you make your proper Toronto Mic debut.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. And I love being on your live stream when I can make it. There's a lot of times I can't. And I go, oh, man, that would have been cool.
Well, let me know those times and I'll reschedule them because I really don't want to do a live stream without Jeremy Hopkin on.
And I do try to drop some helpful things there so you don't have to do too much searching. If I can find a fact or if I know it off the top of my head, I try to drop it. So it's a lot of fun to just sort of be there and be in the moment and just chat along with you guys.
I want to shout out some of the good people that are on the live. Jeremy Hopkin.
Oh, see, I'm listening to drop some help.
Now that's proof. Our live stream's working. So shout out to the VP of Sales. Shout out to Heyref. Shout out to Basement Dweller. Hello to Andrew Ward. Hello to Andy. Hello to Al Grego. We'll talk about him later. He's got a gift for you that I'll be giving you, J-Ho.
Very cool.
And it's funny, noticed by Al Grego is that I say the word pasta both ways in the intro now, just to cover my bases, to hedge my bets. How do you say it? Pasta or pasta?
I normally say pasta, but pasta comes out a lot too. It depends on how cultured I'm feeling that day.
But I feel better knowing you say pasta. My default is pasta.
And same here. Especially after I hear all the Palma advertising. It's forced me that way.
It's worked. Okay, let me just get this out of the way because we have an amazing topic today. I want to get the topic exactly right. We are talking about 10 Toronto buildings that shouldn't have been demolished. And before we get to that topic, I want to learn a little more about you. Like what makes you, Jeremy, such an expert on Toronto history? And I want to learn more about some social media accounts that you manage that I am thoroughly enjoying. But because we've talked about Palma Pasta, as I like to say, they've got 4 locations in Mississauga and Oakville, and they have sent over a large lasagna for you. It's in my freezer right now. You'll be taking that home with you.
Incredible. I've had some of their stuff before at TMLX 14, and it was amazing.
It was amazing. And did you get a Great Lakes beer at TMLX 14?
I did. I got a couple. I tried out a couple I hadn't had before. I had a Burst, and I forget the other one I had, but...
I love Burst, but now the Sunnyside is here. So Sunnyside, a building's still there. I pass it on my bike every day. We'll be discussing 10 buildings that should not have been demolished, and I'm thankful that Sunnyside Pavilion is still standing.
Same here. I passed it on the way here and had a nice drive in, going through Sunnyside and Long Branch and all the old villages that eventually were merged.
Well, if you got to Long Branch, you went too far.
Oh, wait. Okay, sorry. Mimico. I saw the streetcars going there.
I was like, okay, you went too far there. But yeah, Long Branch is to the west, Mimico to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you.
Yep, in New Toronto.
New Toronto. Good for you. I just read a piece about Mary Berg had bought her dream home with her husband. I don't know if it's husband or partner. I don't know. But she was talking about how amazing this Mimico neighborhood was and how much she loves living in Mimico. And I was getting so angry, Jeremy, because I know, and I won't dox her, okay? But I know her address. My daughter's best friend in the world shares the other half of the semi. And I know it's in the heart of New Toronto, and I was irate. Am I over, should I just accept that she's going to say Mimico for marketing purposes, or should I be angry about this? What say you?
Were you irate enough to send a bunch of those fake ads out that have been hitting her lately?
How did you know that was me? How did you know that was me? That's my revenge tactic.
It just seemed like you were vengeful. I don't know.
Ooh, I've been
sorry to call you out on.
Okay, that was all me. But no, I wish her no ill will. I've never met her personally, but please, be proud of the fact you're in the neighborhood known as New Toronto. You don't have to say Mimico.
For sure, yes. New Toronto, it has its historic roots there, and where I grew up in Scarborough, there's so many of the old little villages that I knew, and I knew the borders of, but nobody else did. They didn't even know Scarborough ended at Victoria Park. So, Wait,
where's Scarborough again?
It's that away, very far.
Home of the zoo, am I right?
Yes, home of the zoo, birthplace of a few famous people here and there.
Stephen Page?
Yeah. And
Maestro Fresh West? Yeah. Was he born in Scarborough? I know he's raised in Scarborough.
A lot of them were raised in Scarborough, but not born there. So they were very early.
Fred Patterson from Humble and Fred, Scarborough resident.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mike Myers
in
the Myers Boys.
Yes, there's a street named after him there.
Okay. So
Conn Smythe also spent a lot of his childhood there.
Interesting, because he's buried in this. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Conn Smythe is buried at Park Lawn Cemetery, which is not far from where we're chatting right now.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's where I born and raised, and just basically got interested in the history of Scarborough because that's where I was, and I would just kind of wonder, why is that street named that, and why is this place named that? And I just started digging a little bit more. And because my dad was very much into railway history, we drove into every little town that ever had a railway station. So that's how I got my local history love, and it just sprouted from there and got ridiculous to the point where I went off on my own and ventured into just the Scarborough history, and I spent about 15 years at the Scarborough Historical Society researching and documenting a lot of the stories of people there, and that was a lot of fun. And eventually, I had kids, and that kind of kicked me out of a lot of the volunteering that I did.
Yeah, they really get in the way, right?
Yeah, but get in the way, but also it was a happy getting in the way, especially during COVID, when that hit. One of my kids basically grew up a COVID baby, I guess, or a COVID toddler. So
sure, okay.
It gave me some time to really spend with them and reflect on that.
So can you shout out some? I know that you, and I want to make sure they're all attributed to you. What are you responsible for in terms of social media accounts where people who are interested in Toronto history might want to, see great old pictures and learn more?
Okay, well, there's all my social media accounts that are under my name, Jeremy Hopkin, or under Hopkin Design when I couldn't get that, because I do a lot of graphic design and that sort of thing. So
being a Toronto historian doesn't pay the mortgage?
No, it does for some people, but it does take.
Who are these people?
Well, there's quite a few people out there that are making some coin at it, and
like Steve Bacon.
Yeah, and Adam. Let's see. Adam Bunch and
Adam Bunch. Can you tell me a little? Do you spend a moment here? He's in my calendar.
Oh yeah,
and I haven't done my homework yet. I just know somebody, and it could have been you for all I know.
Oh, okay.
Somebody I trust said you need Adam Bunch on your podcast, and because I literally am at a point now where if somebody I trust tells me I should have somebody on.
Oh yeah.
I book them, then I learn about who the hell they are. I could be having someone's grandmother on or whatever. I wouldn't know what's going on here. But Adam Bunch, just in a nutshell, who the hell is Adam Bunch, and what am I going to talk to him about?
Well, his main gig, I guess. Well, he started off with a Toronto Dreams project, and then he eventually evolved into Canadiana. And if you go on YouTube and a few places online, he tells a history of places in Canada, and he's sometimes focused on Toronto, but he's a little bit all over the place. And every once in a while, he'll do exhibits down with the Museum of Toronto, which is now Museum of Toronto. They've recently changed their name. And he's sort of...
So they're not the museum anymore?
No, they've just recently, within a week or two...
Because I know Ed Conroy had a display there, Toronto-based children shows.
Yeah, that was an incredible show too.
So I was there. I recorded live there with Ed Conroy from Retro Ontario and PJ Fresh Phil. Like this was last summer.
Yes.
I think it was last summer.
Yeah.
So since then they've rebranded. Renamed.
Yeah, just recently, within the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
And I think they're really shooting to be the Museum of Toronto, and with developments with Old City Hall not having the courts in there anymore, who knows, maybe they're trying to push to get in there eventually and make that an actual city museum like a lot of the other cities in the world have.
Show note for those just joining the live stream. So I've been promoting this as a 10 a.m. start. But you got here early, and I don't want to wait. Like I said, this is not a TV show, okay? Like we don't wait till 10 and then start. If you're here, we're gonna roll. You know that we record this for the podcast, and if people want to come in live, but I just want to let Rob Pruce know, because Rob Pruce, who of course is part of the Toast team here on Toronto Mike, which is a regular monthly program with Bob Willett. He says it's 10:02. What time did you start? What did I miss? So yeah, Rob, we started early. And I do want to say hello to the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team fanatic, Midtown Gord, who is on the live stream now. So there's a lot of good people.
Hi, guys.
You're a good person. Glad to have you finally here.
Thank you so much.
Couple of gifts, and then we're going to start with the list. How do you want to do it? Do you want to go 10 to 1? Like, how have you organized these 10 buildings that we should not have destroyed in the city?
Well, really, it's not a top 10, and my order is all out of whack, so we can really do which...
Okay, no particular order, but can you close with a biggie? Like, I don't know. We didn't talk, of course, because I like to be surprised.
Biggie that might align with one of your sponsors, or...
Oh, do you want to do that?
Would that work better,
okay,
the very last one?
You know what? Okay. I like how you think. I like the cut of your jib. Okay. And I feel like when you're wearing that suit and you had the hat on, that's an expression that would be appropriate. The cut of your jib.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean? Like it's an old schooly,
like
Mr. Burns would say that.
That's
you know
the bee's knees or something like that.
Right.
Cat's pajamas.
All right. And now that I see Canada Kev is here, I know I can give you your Great Lakes beer. So
incredible.
We talked about it. Oh, and I'm going to hit the camera and mess it up. But you have some Great Lakes beer going home with you.
Very cool. Has the Sunnyside come out yet?
It's out, but I don't have it yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But there's a Mimico beer.
You know, I went out to just buy a can of that one day just because of the picture on the front, because it had the pavilion on there.
Well, this one kind of has a Toronto history flavor. Is de la Mimico.
Oh, okay.
And you got the Mimico skyline, which if we were talking 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we'd be like, Mimico doesn't have a skyline. But if I'm on the Ronces Bridge, which I'm often on my bike, and I look west, there's absolutely a Mimico skyline now. It's unbelievable because I was born and raised in this city. So to see this transformation of that, Humber Bay shores and Park Lawn Lakeshore area, like it's unbelievable, the development there. And that's kind of a tribute to that.
Very cool. Just driving in today, I saw all of those buildings that are basically depicted here, and I remember when they were all hotels and motels, and
absolutely
they were really kind of cool because they had all the funky chairs out front and all that sort of thing. But I know they'd taken a downturn at the end, but yeah, it's a bit of a change.
Did any survive? Are there any remaining?
I don't think any of them are there anymore.
I think if you get into like Mississauga, you get like the Green Acres Motel, and you get a couple that have kind of survived out like further west. But I don't think there's any remaining. But I know that's exactly what it was in that neck of the woods. It was like motel.
Oh yeah, and it was famous for a lot of movies shooting in there and all that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Also the what was it again? The dance hall that was there that
Mimicombo. The dance hall.
The very old one in the 1940s. It burned down in the 60s.
So this is an important distinction, we should say, that we are talking about 10 Toronto buildings that were demolished.
Yes.
So we're not going to talk about buildings, and you can talk about them in passing. But if there's a building that, we miss, but it burned down, that's a whole different category.
Oh, yeah. And this is definitely not a top 10. This is just a random 10. I tried to pick them based on building use. So it's not really about era. It's not really about what's the most beloved one or anything like that. But there is some aesthetic value there that and also over the years of running certain sites like Vintage Toronto and my own sites, and just finding out people's opinions about these buildings and how much they miss them and that sort of thing.
Okay, and because we're talking about buildings that were torn down, as Canada Kev points out on the live stream, that's a shout out to Ridley Funeral Home right now. These are basically dead buildings. So there is a measuring tape for you, Jeremy, from Ridley Funeral Home, pillar of this community. They've been around under a different name, as you pointed out, but they've been around at that location, 14th and Lakeshore, since 1921, I believe. So
a long time.
Hopefully that building is never demolished. Long may that building stand. Okay, so
it's
here
a pillar.
here we are. It's a pillar of the community, as you know. Apparently, I made that up. One day I'm talking to Brad, and I say that every episode. And for some reason in my mind, I'm like, I must have got that from Brad. But no, apparently I just made it up one day and it stuck, which is how most of this show kind of operates. So we'll hold on to that for the final building.
Yes.
Right? You have, I want to tell you, there's a great FOTM who actually is going to be rehearsing with his band in this neighborhood of New Toronto later tonight. And I hope he's not listening. So if the cuddly Al Grego is listening, cover your ears for like 1 minute. I'm going to walk over and see if I can sneak in. I don't know how much security there is at this rehearsal place, but I'm going to see if I can sneak in and catch the first live performance of the Royal Pains in many years. This is a big moment for me. So he's not just a great musician, and he's not just a wonderful FOTM that I can't wait to see at TMLX 15 on June 27 from 6 to 9 p.m. at Great Lakes Brewery, but he's also an award-winning podcaster, and he went out west. He went to Calgary. He went even further west than Mimico, believe it or not. He went to Calgary and he's been talking to small business owners, and he's been dropping episodes for season 6 of Yes, We Are Open. These are dropping weekly. His visit with Cass Kelly, or is it Kylie? I'm going to say Kylie. Cass Kylie Burke and Sean Chan. They own Cax Bar, a unique new addition to downtown Calgary. It's a neighborhood bar restaurant with a built-in podcast studio. We need one of those right here. A business after Al's own heart and my own heart as well. And that conversation, which is awesome, is the latest episode of Yes, We Are Open, Season 6. You can listen to it, Jeremy, in with your new Moneris wireless speaker.
Very
That's going
cool.
home with you.
Thank you so much.
And if you want to subscribe easily, you can scan that QR code on the card there.
Sweet.
But thank you to Al. Thank you to Moneris. And without further ado, let's get rocking here.
Thank you, everybody.
Tell me about the first of the 10 Toronto buildings we're going to discuss that should not have been demolished.
Okay. My very first one, and I brought some pictures for the benefit of the live streamers,
Love it.
is this building. If you all know Union Station downstairs or downtown, just next door to it, just east or west of it, was the old Union Station. And this was built in 1873, torn down in 1927. And for a time, both this station and Toronto Union Station were both standing.
Can I see it?
Yeah, sure. There you go.
Because I don't know much about this old Union Station, because I was just a kid in 1927.
Yeah, well, at the time,
apparently.
the railway was right at the lakefront, and there wasn't any infill, so it was right at the docks. And it
Is
had
that front? Where are we here?
That is Front Street is just behind it.
Just behind it. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Because I literally did this ride yesterday. But okay, so remind us, where did Lake Ontario go to at this time? I'm looking at the photo. That's Lake Ontario, right?
Yeah,
Right
that's
up
Lake
to
Ontario.
the where Union Station is now.
And even to construct some of this platform, they had to go into the mud of the harbor, so they sort of built a floating platform in the front of it. And but it was a very fancy Victorian-looking building with a clock tower in the center. And it was made of white brick, so it was very light, and also I guess it was a white stone at the bottom. So over the years, we had a lot of coal fueling everything, so
Right.
this got tarnished very quickly. So by the 1920s, everyone thought, oh, this old dilapidated building, it's just no good anymore. It's too small. They had to expand it a lot of times, and it hid some of the nice features that were in here. But
It's a beautiful building.
it was a very beautiful building, and I just kind of thought, wow, that would be amazing if it was round still, and they repurposed it for something that was beside the new Union Station.
Yeah, like a marketplace or something.
Yeah, anything.
Like so many options there. But it at the time, so in the 20s, when they're like, oh, this dirty old thing, we don't need it anymore. We replaced it with a new Union Station. The thought is, let's just raise it. And today, perhaps, we have more sensitivity to like what's a historical building we should protect. Is that fair
Exactly.
to say?
And yeah, we do have more sensitivity, not so much about the insides of the building, but we like the nice front. So
That's true. You know,
it seems like there's a lot of there is definitely a lot of facadism going on now, where it looks like a brand new building wearing an
Right.
old pair of shoes. Like
well, you can say that about like the Scotiabank Arena, right? But you
Yes.
can, in one of that, I thought they did a pretty good job on the inside though, because you can go. I drove by it yesterday. You can go to the Shoppers Drug Mart that was the Runnymede Theater, and they did a very
Yeah.
good. And I know Chapters did it first, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
Chapters was in there before it went to Shoppers. But they did a very nice job restoring the inside elements of that beautiful Runnymede Theater.
yeah, when it's an adaptive reuse, I'm always all for that. It's great when somebody can make use of a building and not put it into landfill and reduce the carbon footprint as well in doing that, saving an old
Right.
building.
I love this start because that photo is mesmerizing because it's hard to even like for our generation and the boomers to even imagine that the lake went that far north in Toronto. And it's so. Do you have any insight into like when they said, okay, we're gonna fill in this land so it goes, where you get Queens Quay below?
I think it kind of actually, since we're on the topic of railways, a lot of it did start with the railways. They just wanted easy lake level access. And that's the easiest way to do it. You don't have to go up and down hills. You follow a lake level route. So they just kept building the lakefront because of expanded rail traffic. So at one point, to get from the actual station down and touch the water, you had to cross like almost 20 tracks.
Yeah.
And it was all on foot. And that's eventually why they raised all the tracks and made it all underneath. And yeah.
Okay, silly question. Okay, what do I know? But how do they decide how far south to make the the shore? Like theoretically, couldn't you go out another kilometer or whatever?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Couldn't you go to the island?
You could, and who knows? Maybe Doug Ford will. You never know with Ontario Place.
Well, don't give Doug Ford any ideas. No. I don't think he listens. But
they did set a line though. From Gooderham and Wirtz, they had a windmill line. And that was their gauge for a long time. And you couldn't really tell when you're standing there where it is, but they had it drawn out on a map where people could expand their wharves to and all that sort of thing.
Amazing. I will shout out a wonderful conversation last week that Troy from Great Lakes Brewery had with the gentleman who owns the Island Cafe on Wards Island.
I just listened to that last night.
So that won't count because it burned down, okay? Nobody decided to demolish that building, so it does not qualify for today's discussion. But it is interesting to hear where they're at with all that and what are the plans for the Island Cafe. And I didn't realize till this conversation, which people can find as the latest episode of Between Two Fermenters, which is the Great Lakes Brewery podcast. But I didn't not realize the involvement of Great Lakes Brewery with that restaurant, and that they would, make a special lager for the Island Cafe lager, and they would basically supply the Island Cafe with their delicious craft beer. So go listen to that convo and find out what's the future of the Island Cafe. What did you think of the convo?
I thought it was great, and it's amazing how supportive that brewery is of the cafe. They're there to support them and try to get them some revenue while they're down, and I think they're going to be there for them.
Do you know what your first clue is that they actually give a shit about the community?
Yes. You can feel it. And when they're talking, they're actually living here and they're interacting with people, and they know a lot of the people firsthand. So it's very cool.
And they support independent podcasts like this for almost a decade now, which is unheard of.
That's incredible.
So, and they're going to host us on June 27. Jeremy, I hope you can make it. It is TMLX 15. Palma Pasta will feed us. Great Lakes will buy you your first beer and will host us. And not only is this going to be the 15th Toronto Mike listener experience, I met you at the 14th, and everybody listening is invited, by the way, not just Jeremy, because he wears a 3-piece suit and has a nice tie and a nice hat.
I'm definitely going to come in the suit though on that day because I've got it in my book.
Wear the hat
because it's your birthday. I gotta do it.
Okay, thank you for that.
It's a milestone.
I got to see Jeremy Hopkin there. Okay, let's go to the next one. I realize I can spend a half an hour on each one, so I'm going to try to be a little more.
Well, I do have more notes on that one. I guess if you do want to see a piece of that building, it still exists. If you go to Huntsville and you look at their town hall, they have the clock.
Get out of here.
They repurposed the clock for their clock tower, so you can go see it ticking away still today.
Okay, that's an amazing fact. So Huntsville, you can see part of the old Union Station that we tore down in the 20s, and that is a building that we should not have demolished, looking in hindsight. Okay.
It was a pretty one.
9 more to go. I'm loving this.
Okay, here's a not so pretty one, which you might not recognize here because this photo here is when it was converted to Petrie's Machinery Company. But this building that's here was hexadecagon, 16-sided building that was a cyclorama. And this is one of the early forms of entertainment where you would go inside this building and there was a 400-foot mural wrapped all around the inside of this building. And it was one of the first immersive experiences that were in Toronto, where you could go into this building and relive an event in history by going in there 40 feet tall and or 50 feet tall and go in there and just experience what it was like at the Battle of Sedan or
like an IMAX experience.
Yeah, it's like an IMAX experience with no projectors. It's just painted, and they put little 3D scenes in front of it to give it that 3D feel. Where if it was a battle, they'd put like dead horses or like,
Yeah.
and not real ones, but sculptures in front of this to give it
back
an
then it might have been
experience.
real ones. Who knows?
You
Jeremy?
never know. They did bring a lot of animals to show and
They
leave
shoot
them dead.
horses, don't they?
There was actually a zoo not far from here where they brought a dead whale and had it just laying there for a long time.
I'll shout out that at the very end, when we finished all 10 of these buildings, by the way, I have notes from some people who, when they heard this topic was coming up on Toronto Mike, they got excited and sent in their choices. So I will say one does involve horses, but we'll just put a pin in that. Where was this building located?
This was actually very close to Union Station. And if you look here, this building that's here, the taller one here, is an extension of Union Station that came out onto Front Street.
Okay, so far
So
I
it
love
was
the first
very
two in the
close to it.
same hood here. And I see the trolley cars on going by here. Okay,
And by 1900, it went out of business. Other form of entertainment came along, movies and a lot of other forms came where people could
those
watch
talkies stole their
it. The
thunder.
talkies didn't come until the 20s, maybe 28, 29.
Right.
But it eventually got converted into a parking garage called Petrie's Parking Palace. And then eventually was an Avis Rent-A-Car. And towards the end, it just was torn down, and people started to sort of lament about it and remember the good old days when it was a cyclorama and all this and that.
Yeah.
But it's a 16-sided building, and back then there wasn't really much need for that. So,
Say that word again.
it's a hexadecagon.
But you called it a cyclorama?
Yeah, cyclorama or cyclorama.
At first, when you said the word initially, I'm like, oh, it's like a velodrome or whatever. It's like you can bike in circles in there. And I was like, oh yeah, I need one of those. Like, it sounds great to
They
me.
did actually have a couple of those around back in the day, but yeah, this wasn't one of them.
Okay, so when did they demolish it again?
That was demolished in 1976. So sadly, 1 year before I was born, I didn't get to even be in there as a baby.
See, I could have been there, but I don't think I was. But how would I remember what was going on when I was 1 or 2 years old?
If your parents were renting a car, maybe. That's about it.
Okay, wild. Okay, I love this so far. Give us a third building that
Okay.
Toronto demolished,
Now
but
this
should not have demolished.
This is one that I've had a lot of people cry about. And this is the Temple building. It was the old Foresters building. Foresters is now located in, I guess, the Flemington area, right near Eglinton and Don Mills. And that building's supposed to be designated soon. Maybe it actually has. But yeah, after they left this building, they went to the one in Flemington, and they tore this down not too long after in 1970. Some of this building was salvaged, though, and you can find it at the Guild Inn Park in Scarborough.
I was there for an FOTM Hall of Famer's wedding just last summer.
Oh, wow. So you
I
probably
biked there,
you walked
and I
right
saw
by
that
a piece of this.
I probably have photos. I mean, it's so photogenic, all those pieces. But that's a fun fact that you
Yeah.
can actually see that there. I was at the great wedding of Cam Gordon in MF.
Oh, wow.
And it was there on that premises, and yeah, it was neat to walk around and see the old ruins and stuff. Very cool.
That was one thing about the Guild Inn. It was an inn, but it started off as an artist colony. And Spencer and Rosa Clark were very much into the arts and had a lot of famous artists there on the premises. But they also, when they heard these buildings were being torn down, and because they loved art, they would see the sculptural beauty of a lot of these buildings and just want to save a piece. So they brought a lot of it back to the Guild Inn. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the future because a couple of these other buildings have pieces there too.
Well, shout out to Basement Dweller who tells us Cyclorama, that's the previous building,
Yes.
was also the name of a Styx album that featured FOTM Gowan. And I believe Gowan lives near the Guild Inn.
He is a little
Yeah,
further
well, he's
west.
a Bluffs guy,
but
so
yeah.
you're close enough, right? Like,
But yeah, he's Cliffside area, and yeah, we used to see him, or we used to see his wife all the time, every once in a while, when we were hanging out down there in the 90s.
Well, don't be afraid to sprinkle in any FOTM trivia or fun facts here. Digging it very, very much. Okay, now we're cooking with gas here. So,
Okay, so we're, I think that's all I wanted to
but
really mention about.
so you said that was, where was it?
Sorry, this was on Bay Street, just south of Old City Hall. If you look here, that's a piece of Old City Hall right there that you can see up the street.
I once got married at Old City Hall.
So this was
Okay.
right at Richmond and Bay, on the
Okay.
northeast corner, or no, sorry, northwest.
And when did they demolish it?
1970.
So what is it about us in the 70s? We just said, hey, these are kind of neat looking old buildings.
Oh.
F them. Let's get rid of these things.
It was an age of modernism, and the 60s was especially bad for Toronto buildings. A lot went in the 60s, and by the 70s, a lot of these buildings were covered in soot. they looked like derelict old
Right,
buildings.
they
and
just needed a good scrubbing.
yeah, they did. And a lot of these buildings that did survive, they do a chemical wash and they
Yeah.
look beautiful. They're amazing.
Bet.
Yep.
I'll bet. Now, I have a question about a building that was not demolished, but was like, I was like working across the street as this construction was going on. So every day I would kind of see the updates in real time at like
Okay.
Avenue Road and Bloor. But what are your thoughts when they take like an old building like the Royal Ontario Museum and then they splash in this kind of like crystal, I think they called it the crystal, but this modern crystal jagged piece kind of gets tacked on the side. Like, what do you think of that, Jeremy Hopkin?
I think in that case, it's very close to actually being reversible. And the way that they made it, it sort of hugs the side of the building.
Right.
So really, I don't think it's doing the damage that people think it's doing. It visually looks different. But before, when it was, I guess, originally there, you wouldn't really notice it as much because it's a very classic design of the museum. So this kind of makes it stand out in the area. And I do like that. The overall design of the crystal, they found there were some flaws there, and they also maybe didn't realize it's in Canada, so you get some ice formation that dangerously falls on
I
people's
feel
heads.
like the architect is Jamaican. Maybe am I out to lunch there? Maybe he's a Chinese Jamaican gentleman.
I'm not
Mr.
sure
Chin?
about the background, but yes.
Well, he might not. Might not
It's the
have
chin
considered
crystal, though, right?
Chin crystal. You might not have considered the frost element, but I it's very decisive, right? Like you have people who kind of dig the modern splash coming out of this old building, and then you have people like, you ruined it. You ruined this beautiful old building.
You know, there was one time I was very hypercritical about anything being ripped down, about anything being changed like that.
Yeah.
And I've grown, and
You've matured.
and now I've gotten to the point where I try to celebrate anything that keeps any of our history, even if it's a fraction.
So we should be grateful they did not tear down the Royal Ontario Museum.
Yes, because it is kind of restrictive in the way they like to display things now and be flashy. It's actually due to go through another renovation now. They've got a huge donation from a family, and they're supposed to be making a new entrance on the north side off Bloor to be more accessible to people and provide things for free where you don't have to go into the building and pay a big admission.
Okay, I love what I'm hearing here. I will also tease that I took a few minutes to think about some buildings I hope they don't demolish, like that I feel might be endangered in some regard. So I will be, we will chat about those at some point.
For sure.
And I realize now, like when I initially thought, okay, we're kicking out the 10 buildings we demolished but shouldn't have, and my mind is like, this is going to be a tight hour. But now I realize, Jeremy, it's going to take a little longer than an hour. I just hope that's okay.
It's okay. I know debuts go a little bit longer usually because you're finding out stuff about people, and yeah,
Also,
that's fine.
I find the topic fascinating. You can't rush greatness. You must know this. You must know this. Okay.
Well, I can ramble on forever, so yeah,
Ramble on.
I'll depend on you to referee.
And because I want to share this video on YouTube, I've been showing great restraint because I do have a song loaded up that is a piece of unlicensed music. I do not have the rights to play, but I'm wondering if I can play like 5 seconds and then bring it down very quickly. I wanted to play this for you.
Oh my God.
So tell me, I think that's enough. I think every Gen Xer listening just had, that's like the beacon, right? What was your life like when Pearl Jam released the monster hit Jeremy, and the video was being played at One Much Music all the time? And that's a great album that probably a lot of your friends, maybe yourself, owned. That's on 10, of course. But what happened to your life when a big song named Jeremy came out?
Well, like you, I was very much into the grunge scene, and I still am. I still love Nirvana. I still love a lot of those guys, and Pearl Jam, great too, and Temple of the Dog, the earlier iteration.
I'm going hungry.
Before everybody struck out on their own. But I was in high school, and it just became one of those introduction songs that people just would sing to me.
But today, like Jeremy spoke in class today. Was that a big thing?
Well,
if you spoke in class?
The way the video was, and
at the end, yeah.
and I wasn't exactly the most happy person back then. Yeah,
Oh.
they're like, oh, I
The
wonder.
video's ambiguous, right?
I wonder if he's gonna do that.
Well, okay, so the video I find to be ambiguous. Now, this is just me talking because,
Even this part where the kids are like,
well, that's it. So yeah, because you have the splash of blood.
yeah,
So the way I believe it's you're supposed, and the way I have interpreted it is that Jeremy takes his own life in front of his class.
oh,
This is how I interpret it.
right.
But there's the other side where Jeremy shoots up his class maybe before taking his own life, and they're both terrible, horrific occurrences. But how, you as a Jeremy,
Yes.
in that video again, that Pearl Jam, that was so big that Pearl Jam basically said, we're shutting down videos for a while. Like that was it for Pearl Jam and videos for a long time until Do the Evolution, I think. And they're not even in that. But how do you interpret the ending of the Jeremy
Even then
video?
it was just an animation, right? It was, they got Todd McFarlane
That's
to
100%
do
correct.
that, right? Yeah.
And it's a great video, but it was like their next video, but there's no Pearl Jam in it. But that's a great song, by the way, Do the Evolution.
Yes.
Selling stocks on the day of the crash. Yeah. I'm going to come back to stocks in a minute. First, tell me, how do you interpret the end of the Jeremy video?
I thought he'd basically, I thought maybe at least he had taken out the teacher.
See, it's interesting
Because of how he
discussion.
was treated by, they did mention the teacher there every once in a while, and at the recess lady's breast, it almost seemed like an authority problem, maybe not a problem with the kids.
So it's great that here we are many decades later still having the conversation. I think a piece is missing. I think there was an edit made that would make it less ambiguous, but I always interpret it as Jeremy took his own life in front of his class, but terrible. But you know what?
I always, I did enjoy getting that sung to me more than the Jeremy the Bear song, because I got a lot of that when I was a kid.
There's a song I don't think I'll get a ding on. I have, this was my first Jeremy song.
Yes.
I'm a bear called Jeremy. I can do most anything. I can play and I can sing little tunes that do re mi. When he heard me sing, the king of birds said to me, "Here's for you, dear thing, a whistle that goes tweet, 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 tweet. I'm a bear called Jeremy. I can do most anything.
I love Jeremy the Bear.
I did too, and I used to watch a lot of reruns as a kid, I realized, because
You're probably
that was
watching
actually from
TVO.
the 60s, right?
Okay, because TVO was doing this to us. I'm in the
Yeah.
same. We're in the same boat here, and I've actually there's many an episode with Retro Ontario where we dive into this. But that was kind of I was parked in front of TVO for these blocks, and
Same.
and I mean I'm thinking now there was the Simon and the Land of Chalk drawings.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember Fables of the Green Forest?
I do.
It was my favorite.
And the mouths that just were open, close, open, close. Yeah, I loved it.
Trouble. Like I still will
That Blue Jay,
sometimes.
oh.
Yeah, I'll still call with my kids. I'll be like trouble, and it's Fables of the freaking Green Forest. So there's a lot of those, and then there was Dr. Snuggles.
Oh, yes.
Friend to the Animal World.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
But there's all these things that are like etched in our brain.
And I'm glad because I got exposure to it. It was a bit of a time travel there that
but we didn't know these were from the 60s.
Yeah,
Like,
it took me
what
a
do
while
we
to
know?
clue in because I would watch Frightenstein all the time, and I would be like, "Oh, when's a new season coming out?"
Right.
That was recorded like 10 years before you're watching it, buddy.
Well,
Sorry.
you know, like Rocket Robin Hood, and these are not TVO shows anymore, but Rocket Robin
Oh, yeah,
Hood and
Hercules?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hercules. Like how much?
And
I think it was
Toot and
global.
Newton?
How much? How much? Newton and Daedalus.
And I was always wondering.
Helena.
I was always wondering how Toot fit in Newton's back. Like it was weird. He just merged with him. Like, is that why they called him Toot? Because he got stuck there.
Yeah, maybe. But when I think of the quantity of Hercules that we and that's Johnny Nash doing the theme song, which you might not,
Yes.
because you're a savvy guy. But that's a fun fact. But yeah, we had no sense that we were watching stuff that was like, I don't know, our parents were watching. Like, this was the stuff that on TV. This is the world we live in that our kids don't understand, which is that we watched what was in front of us. Like, oh, this is on now, therefore we're watching this because this is like the best thing on right now. And nobody
Yeah.
can understand that. Like, I have 4 kids and everything's on demand now. So if they want to watch an old Curb Your Enthusiasm, or my daughter who's fallen in love with The Simpsons, like she'll jump around. I'm going to do like a season 14 or whatever. Like she's kind of like running this thing, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, they have no idea. We would sit down and watch what's the Friar Tuck one? Oh, is that the
That was part of Rocket
Robin
Robin
Hood,
Hood, yeah.
right. So wasteful. He would take a bite and throw the rest away. Okay,
Yeah.
But
We would do the impression of him every once in a while eating our food, and we'd get in trouble.
But on a Sunday morning, Jeremy, we would watch Davy and Goliath. Okay, I would because Commander Tom would put it on, and it was the best on TV. Because if I flipped the channels, it was usually religious programming or news. You had
Yes.
news, religion, and then you had, oh my goodness, this claymation, this thing I can watch, and we watched it. It wasn't good. What did we know? It was the best thing on, and we watched it because what were we going to do?
Yeah, that's all that was there. So you made the best of what you had, or you went out on your bike and went out for the whole day and then came back at the end before the lights came on, that whole sort of thing. But also, I think that's why the most recent generations in recent times have been kind of hard to define because not everyone shares in it that way that they did back then. And now it's just so much choice. It's like, how do you define, like, I can define the 1920s because I'm like, oh, they wore boater hats and then wore suits everywhere. But now it's like, anything goes, really. Like, there's people that look like they're from the 20s, like me, and people that look like they're from the 80s still.
And 90s, like me. Okay.
They're all over the place. Yeah.
We're all over the place. Now, you're right. It used to be, of course, we all watch that same thing. Like, this is the thing that's on, the MASH finale is tonight. Oh, we're all going to tune in in real time to watch this MASH finale because everyone's going to do that. The only time that seems to happen now is with a big live sporting event. So, and even that, unless it's the Super Bowl or something, it's pretty fragmented. But like, I'm watching Caitlin Clark trying to win her, Iowa's first NCAA championship against an undefeated South Carolina team. And I'm there to watch that live in real time. And there's very few examples of where I'm like, there's appointment viewing. And almost every example I have is live sports, almost.
Oh, okay.
Different time. Where back in the day, it was like, Seinfeld's on tonight at 9 o'clock or whatever. We'll be there on NBC to watch Seinfeld at 9 o'clock.
I remember in high school a lot of the Seinfeld watching parties like that, and yeah, it was a collective shared thing that people did.
And it's gone now.
Yes,
outside of live sports.
Oh, so much rerunning though. There's a huge market in that.
All right, look, you didn't know we'd be off the buildings, but okay. So Jeremy the Bear. That's your theme song for a while, because from the 80s, even though it's an older show that's kind of like late 70s. You're a couple years younger than me, but we're similar vintage. We're watching that thing on TVO, and I loved it very much. And then suddenly in very early 90s, Pearl Jam puts out the next Jeremy Jam. And Bob's Your Uncle. That one's going to live forever. You'll be forever at home drawing pictures of Mountaintop.
And it didn't help because I was always drawing pictures, and I was doing graphic design and art for a long time. So it was like, wow, is he creeping on me or something?
Well, you escaped unscathed because you had a much happier ending than Jeremy in the video there. Seemed a harmless little... But that was that radio edit. Like I mean, the F-bomb drops there, but I guess what does he say in the radio edit? Does he just kind of fade out or something?
They just cut it off. Yeah, you just hear a little
Seemed
bit of the F, and that's
little, and then it's kind of done or whatever. Okay, love Pearl Jam. Shout out to Bob Willett, the other part of the Toast crew, who might be the only guy I know who likes Pearl Jam more than I do. So tune in. He's kicking out a Pearl Jam song next Toast. There's a teaser for you.
I've only seen them once, and I was lucky enough for Neil Young to come out that day and do Free World with them at the end at the ACC then.
When, what year? Do you remember?
Oh, God, that was probably 2007.
Because I've seen Pearl Jam 12
It was way
times.
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I used to see them every time they came to town, and because I had a relationship with Eddie Vedder's guitar technician, who we called Yoda, and I had this relationship because he was Customs guitar technician, and we had met through that, and there was a whole arrangement we had, but he would leave me 2 tickets at the will call window every time Pearl Jam came to town, and it was the best freaking deal ever.
So amazing. Wow.
Best deal ever, because I loved the band, and I'd see them anyways. But
too cool.
We digress. Let's talk about another building in Toronto that was demolished, but shouldn't have been demolished.
Ooh, now this one, I think the tourist industry in Toronto really, really was disadvantaged because of this one being taken down. This is the old Toronto Star building. It was built in 1929, came down in 1972, and it is the originator of Superman's Daily Planet.
It looks like the Daily Planet building.
It was Joe Shuster. He worked there as a newsboy, and it was an inspiration for him to make Clark Kent work at a newspaper. And another, I guess, fun fact, like you say, the very first comic, I think, actually calls it the Toronto Star. And later on, they were like, "Oh no, we don't want to get in trouble."
It's more of a mind blow than a fun fact. I got a reeling here.
We got to change it to something else planetary. Yeah, let's do the planet. Yeah, okay, there we go. And
where was it?
It was at 80 King Street West. It was a very beautiful Art Deco building. We didn't really have very many in Toronto, Art Deco buildings, and the ones that we do have, they cherish now. But yeah, back then.
But why the hell did they demolish that beautiful? Don't tell me it was dirty. I'm tired.
It was dirty.
What kind of? I'm sure. Yes,
the front here did get a bit of a staining down the front, but overall it was people didn't have the heart for it like they do now. It's just not enough time had passed at that point, and it was dirty. It wasn't big enough for the Star. They actually had presses in the bottom floors of this. So as they expanded and they had more readership, they needed to go to other facilities, and that's when they went to one Yonge Street.
wild here. And One Yonge Street itself is being
it's
demolished.
It's starting to turn now too. Everything's becoming houses downtown.
Yeah, well, I was at the Cloverdale Mall very recently. I bumped into FOTM Robert Lawson, who's hiding in the bushes right now in case you misstate a fact. If you get something wrong, he's going to come in and fact check you.
I am deathly afraid of Robert Lawson.
I was with him.
I hope he's
saw
not as
him
good on music history as he is
he fact checks
history.
everything. But that place is getting demolished.
Yes.
Not that that's on my list of buildings we shouldn't demolish, but just part of the community for a long time, and it's going to be gone soon. And that building you're holding up there looks gorgeous to me, and I wish we had that in Toronto today.
And when you think about it now, you look at the One Yonge Street. It's dirty. And you kind of think it looks dated. That's how they felt about it in the 1970s.
So, because looking at the two buildings, I'm like, I'll tear down One Yonge Street, but not this guy.
Yeah,
to me, it's a whole different vibe going on.
So it needs some time to marinate that style, and I think a lot of the glass and steel that's going up now, people are just not going to care about, and it won't last as long as this stone building would have if they just left it.
Wow. Okay, that's a big one. This is awesome.
So this is another one. Sorry to cut you off there.
It's okay. It's your show, man. I'm just pressing the buttons.
This is another one that Rosa and Spencer Clark saved a lot of the stone on and reconstructed it at the Guild Inn as a sort of sculpture. And there was a bunch of stuff left over, including some panels from this building that they just had stacked in the dirt. And for years, it just sat there. And I remember going there, and I even took a picture of the heap. And only recently did they take some of this, identify where it was from. But I recognized, oh, that's the little panels from over here. And they recently installed them at the Campbell House Museum down at University in Queen. So you can go to the gardens there and still see some of these panels down there.
Wow.
And so there's pieces of this building all over the place, including at the Toronto Star, they actually saved a lot of the lamps that were in the front here and the ones that were in the inside. Some of those have gone to private sales now. They were, I think, $5,000 a piece or more.
Wow.
But beautiful Art Deco lamps that these people have restored, and hopefully they find another use for, because the ones that were out front of the building were just massive, yeah.
Well, you're reminding me that in this city, we don't save the building, but we'll save the sign. Like, this is like the compromise, right? It happens quite a bit. Like, okay, we're going to save the sign.
And luckily, at least at the Island Cafe, they saved the sign. That was one thing. I'm horrified at. I never actually got to see inside the community center, but they said that they had a lot of history on the walls in there, and it was probably all original pictures. So hopefully they had copies of a lot of that stuff and kept it safe. But I feel like maybe no.
Maybe no. And one of the signs that has been saved is the 1050 Chum that was there on Yonge Street there before because that's a building that was demolished, and that was the 1050 Chum. We're a bit young for the heyday of 1050 Chum, but go ask a baby boomer about 1050 Chum, right? That'll put
I would hear all the oldies as a kid, so yeah, it was very big even when I was a kid.
But the sign survived, just like the Sam the Record Man sign.
It's down on the back of 299 299 Queen Street West. Yeah, the old Much Music building. It's around the back.
What are the plans for that building?
Bell
train station or something?
I think Bell wants to sell it.
Isn't it designated to be some kind of a train station, or am I conflating stories that it was designated to be like a hub in some kind of transport system that we're building? But maybe I'll get Robert Lawson to do a little homework and get back to us. We'll move on to the next building
on the
and
Ontario
see
line somewhere.
If anybody, how about this? Anyone on the live stream who wants to tell me what exactly is happening with 299 Queen Street, which of course is across the street from the bar that's closing after many years at 298.
The Black Bull.
The Black Bull, as discussed with Ed Keenan. So that was a recent episode of Toronto Mike. But we digress. That's interesting. The Toronto Star building. What you got next there? And what number are we on?
Oh,
are you keeping track?
I'm not keeping track. No, I think that's 4. Let me see here. We are on.
Maybe we need a pile for what's done and then a pile for what's to come or something.
We're on number 5.
Getting organized.
We're on number 5.
Number 5.
Okay, now this one you might think looks like Toronto had a castle besides Castle Loma.
Oh yeah, it does look like a castle, like the rooks in my chest sat there.
This is the old Toronto Armories building on University Avenue. This used to stand right north of the, what is that building called? I can't think of the name right now. Right at Queen and University. It's Osgood Hall.
Osgood Hall.
Right north of Osgood Hall. Sorry, okay. I just had a brain fart there.
I have several every episode, and because I won't edit it, Yeah.
I've been there several times for Doors Open, but I still can't remember the name for some reason. But yeah, Osgood Hall, it's one of the oldest buildings in Toronto, but just north of it was the Armories building. And from 1894 till 1963, this was sort of the hub of military activity in Toronto, including the Queen's Own Rifles. It was the largest building in the Canadian militia for many years. They trained 250,000 soldiers through this building. A lot of soldiers and a lot of militia had good memories of this building. And it had 6-foot thick walls. It was massive. It was basically built to withstand an explosion if there was one there.
Sure. And it's gone.
And it's gone. They just didn't really want to have this downtown property anymore. And there was a lot of opposition to the demolition at the time. But eventually the government said, well, we need a new courthouse. We need courthouse space. And this doesn't really fit what we want. But I thought, that would make a good courthouse, though. It looks menacing. It looks like something that, you don't mess around in this building.
You don't mess around in that building. And like you said, it's, other than Casa Loma, where do we have a building that has those kind of castle elements or whatever they're called? But okay, wow.
So it was all military through the Boer War, through World War I, World War II, the Korean War. This was the center of military activity and military organization for that many years.
Wow. And any parts survive? Like, did anybody...
As far as I know, no one's kept it. There may have been... There was one of I think the Queen's Own Rifles saved their fireplace and brought it to the new place. I think it was them. I'm not sure. But there might be some mementos saved, but a lot of this was too heavy really to do. There is a similar building that's actually in London, Ontario that has been converted into a hotel. So even if they did that, that would have been something better than doing what they did.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that one in London, Ontario, because Andrew Ward on the live stream was talking about the spires are common in armories, and that the one in London has that, but smaller. So
yeah. It reminded me, I drove by it and I was like, what? It reminded me so much of this building.
Except it's still here.
Yeah, and fortunately it's still here. It's a hotel, but...
I know I spent some time for work purposes. I spent a lot of time in Frankfurt, and there were large parts of Frankfurt that were destroyed by the bombing in World War II, and they literally rebuilt it to replicate how it looked. So it's like faux, but it's fascinating because it's like, okay, they recreated it so it looks like you're looking at the original buildings and that were destroyed by war.
Yeah.
And I always wondered, like, hey, like maybe there is a building we'll discuss today that is it's so missed and we regret destroying it. We could replicate it, like rebuild it, if you will, or if that would be like, what's the point?
I think did that one make the cut? Yep,
okay,
it made the cut. Yeah.
Okay. Stay tuned here. Earlier we talked about Pearl Jam's "Do the Evolution." Great video, great song. By the way, shout out to Yield. Yield, one of my favorite Pearl Jam albums, and the Yield tour stopped at Molson Park in Barrie. Oh, there's a place that's demolished now, Molson Park in Barrie. Okay, outside of our Toronto jurisdiction here. But loved the Yield album and loved the tour. I still have my Yield t-shirt I bought in 98 at that concert, and it's still one of my favorite concerts of all time. But there's that line, buying stocks on the day of the crash, okay? And that made me think about the Advantaged Investor podcast, because great tips like that can be found for free in Raymond James Canada's The Advantaged Investor podcast, hosted by Chris Cooksey, a good FOTM himself, like you, Jeremy. So,
thank you.
You're already subscribing to Yes, We Are Open, which is a Moneris podcast, but you're also going to subscribe to the Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James Canada, and you're going to bookmark recyclemyelectronics.ca, because I'm sure you don't want to throw out your old devices, your old electronics, your old cables. You want to drop them off somewhere where they're properly recycled so the chemicals don't end up in our landfill. That is the good work by the good people at EPRA who support recyclemyelectronics.ca. You got your marching orders now? Jeremy on board here. Okay, hit me with another one. Loving this.
Okay. Now this is one more about the prettiness of it, but a lot of people miss this building, even though
I like to reveal too. Can I just tell the listenership?
Sorry.
No, I want to tell everybody because most people are just going to hear this; they're not going to see it. But I don't see what you're talking about. You kind of introduce it, then you flip this and you show it to me, and I get this moment where I'm seeing it for the first time.
Oh,
I love it.
Very cool. Well,
loving it.
Hopefully, the live streamers are getting a kick out of it too.
Okay, let's see. They look like they're having a good time.
Oh, okay. Good. This one is the former Board of Trade building. And it was at Front and Yonge Street, right across the street from the Hockey Hall of Fame on the northeast corner, where there's now a bunch of glass and steel.
Glass and steel. That could be the nickname of Toronto. Okay.
So this was built in 1892. It was 7 stories, and originally when it was built, there was a big design competition, and an American firm won, so a lot of people were upset about that. James and James won it. They're out of New York, and it resembles the Flower and Grange Exchange building in Boston, Massachusetts. While they were building this, some of the architects said, you can't build it that way. Something's going to go wrong. It's going to collapse. And they're like, no, and part of it collapsed. So they fired that firm and actually hired another firm to finish it from Buffalo, New York. They finished the job, and it ended up in a very pretty building that wraps around the corner there at Front and
The curvature makes it very attractive.
It's an odd-shaped piece of land because the way Front Street goes there, it followed the lakeshore. So it goes in sort of a triangular way, and you kind of have to do that to the building, but it gave it a really cool look.
And why did we demolish it?
Well, we needed a parking lot for 20 years.
You know, we are similar vintage. We know in the 80s, Toronto was a land of
parking
lot city. It's unbelievable. The amount of real estate we gave to parking lots.
They never really thought about building up in parking lots either. They had so many of them.
Or down or up.
It was just a level lot.
Just a street level, absolutely. And that funky shape reminds Canada Kev and myself of the Flatiron Building.
Oh, yes, which is not even the real name of it. Everyone sort of adopted that now.
What is the real name of it?
After the New York building.
Gooderman? What is it called?
It's the Gooderham building.
Right.
And Gooderham of Gooderham and Wirtz.
From the distillery district.
From the distillery.
You still see that.
That was his office, and at the time...
That's the other place I got married. Married in multiple places.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. There you go.
And he used that so that he could see how the production was going at Gooderham and Wirtz. If he saw the smoke die down, he'd give them a call and say, what's going on over there?
Wow. Shout out to Joni Mitchell, who sang a wonderful song about paving paradise and putting up a parking lot.
Yes.
Which Kev is reminding me of on the live stream. So
this was the TTC head office as well for a number of years. After the Board of Trade moved out, it was vacant for a little while, and then the TTC moved in 1921 when they were just starting off. By 1957, they outgrew it, and they moved up to a newer building up near Eglinton and Yonge.
Okay.
And yeah, it's still there today.
Loving this very, very much. Loving it. That one, I think, maybe there's a few that you've shown me today that I think would be lovely additions to the city of ours in 2024, but that one for sure. That intersection does have the Hockey Hall of Fame, which is amazing. Imagine having that at the corner.
Yeah, it's kind of it literally looks like a crown. It would be a crown jewel because you see it as you come into the main drag.
You know, if they only knew how to clean buildings, everything got dirty and they said, let's throw it out.
Yeah.
It's like, do we throw out our clothes because we get a stain on it or they get a little dirty? No, we wash our clothes and we reuse them, right?
For sure.
Thank you. We're on the same page here.
Nothing lasts forever, but to keep it around, keep something pretty around a little bit longer, why not?
Yeah. It's better for typically better for the environment and to repair and to clean than it is to demolish and rebuild.
For sure.
I'm a bit upset at Basement Dweller, though, if I may share this, because he says he prefers the Counting Crows version of don't know what Big Yellow Taxi. I was trying, what is that name? What is the name of that song? I'm singing it in my head, but Big Yellow Taxi. That's ridiculous. Like, I feel like booting him from the live stream. Do I have your permission, J-Ho, to boot Basement Dweller from the live stream?
I don't know. He's pretty good to me. You can if you really want, but
well, I wouldn't do that because your jams are your jams. But I am I hope this is a joke. So Basement Dweller, let me know if you're doing a bit here, because I don't know any sensible, rational human being who prefers the Counting Crows version to the Joni Mitchell version, and I'm a bit upset here.
Musical passions run deep.
Okay, very upset here, Jeremy. Please, I would say cheer me up.
Okay, well,
but I don't think you can cheer me up because you're just showing me buildings, and I look at these buildings and I think, oh, that's a great building, and then you tell me it's being demolished, and I can't go see it today on my bike ride.
That's unfortunately the whole topic, so I'm sorry.
It was a joke. Basement Dweller says it was a joke. So now my mood is improving instantly. VP of Sales says, phew. There's a bunch of laughter. We're in good shape now. Thank you, Basement Dweller, for giving me a heart attack, okay? Thank goodness I'm on the blood thinners. That could have been dangerous. Okay, let's go.
Okay. I think this is number 6.
Number 6. Or 7.
I'm sorry, I'm out of it.
I'm no voiceover actor. Okay, rock and roll.
There's this building. It's a nice stately building called Corley Park. And I don't know if you know now, but our Governor Generals, when they live here in Toronto, they stay at Queen's Park. They actually have an apartment there for them to live and everything. But before then, they had buildings like this, which were called government houses. And there used to be one before this right across the street from the Royal Alex in the Metro Hall yard there. That used to be basically the government house. And there was a few of them over the years, but that was the one before this one. So they built this. It was very opulent in Rosedale. Now there's a place called Corley Park in Rosedale, which has some of the remnants of this building, which is just a bridge leading along the pathway there. And so this was by the 1930s seen as I guess a sign of great wealth and wealth abuse because of the Great Depression.
Austerity measures were in place.
Everyone looked at this building and were like, those people in their big expensive buildings, having lavish parties and all this. And here I am scraping 2 nickels together to buy an apple or whatever. And so this actually led to the Liberal Party, Mitch Hedberg, rallying.
Not to be confused with the late great stand-up comic, Mitch Hedberg.
Different guy. That's Hedberg. This is Hepburn, right?
Okay.
I'm not pronouncing it properly, probably. So, he got elected to the Liberal Party, and basically they said, well, Corley Park's days are numbered. And in 1937, it closed, and they auctioned everything off on the inside. But World War II came along, and they thought, well, we could reuse this building for war purposes, and they turned it into a military hospital. So that sort of kept its life going a little bit longer. But by 1960, Toronto bought it with plans to basically demolish it because they wanted it gone because it was going to cost them a large amount of money to fix it. So they did, and it was Nathan Phillips who actually led the charge to do that. And it was the 60s. There was a lot of charge going against old buildings that were costing them money at the time. So it was demolished and turned into a park.
Particularly beautiful building. I just need to get a closer look what do you call this part here? Does that have is there a term for that?
Porticos and cupolas. There's a bunch of different styles there.
Look at you pull those names out of your hat. Your hat's over there. Okay. I'm like, what are those called? Because they're cool, man.
It was in a French Renaissance style. There's a few notes on there if you want to.
Did we save any parts of this guy? We save our signs. We save little parts here. We stick it in places where Cam Gordon gets married. What do we got here?
This one, I think some fixtures were saved, but I'm not sure where they went. I forget. But I think some of the lamps that were inside were pretty opulent. They were, I think, gasoliers. So they, somebody saved some pieces along the way.
Stop gaslighting me, man. Okay.
And then you have a lot of the demolition people. You find out years later, they saved a lot of stuff, but they never really said to anybody that they did because they were supposed to put that in the dump.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So
there's a spit. I think it's called a spit, but there's a park nearby called Colonel Samuel Smith Park is the full name. But there's a man-made extension into the water, like much of the waterfront or whatever. And you can, I guess that's where if you were dumping chunks of concrete and stuff, it was trucked out there and to create this spit and. Where I walk quite a bit, and there's a place there called Wimbrel Point, and there's a sign there that I see in an ad actually. But anyway, if people know what I'm talking about, I wonder how many parts of these old buildings have become like part of this island and peninsula and everything that man made.
A lot of those peninsulas, they were made out of these destructed buildings, and all along the Scarborough shoreline, they've tried to shore it up there, and I've found tons of bricks with the actual manufacturer's name in them, and kept them because they came from the Don Valley Brickworks and all those sort of places. But a lot of that's the clean infill that they put in there. Some of the concrete they can't because they actually, I didn't know up until recently that they put asbestos into concrete in a lot of the old buildings as a fireproof measure because they just had to put that everywhere. So a lot of times that you'll see places being destroyed, they'll actually be wearing hazmat suits to avoid
a lot of that
breathing
asbestos. A lot of times, if you just don't disturb it,
it's fine,
right? But
as long
once
as
you
it's contained.
Fuck with it, pardon my French, then suddenly it's a major carcinogen and very dangerous.
A lot of these old radios that I've collected over the years, they have asbestos plates in the bottom to protect from heat, and over the years they dry out and it flakes. So you do have, as long as you encapsulate it, it's fine. It's just if the fibers fly in the air and get into your lungs, that's the bad part. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the bad part there. Okay. So is the next one the anti-penultimate? I think I see 3 left, right?
There's 3 left, yes.
Okay, because after the anti-penultimate, I'm going to ask you, Jeremy Hopkin, a very important question. No, nothing to do with any sponsors or anything, but with the content of this very program, Toronto Mic'd. So let's look at this anti-penultimate building that was destroyed, but should not have been destroyed.
Okay. Anti-penultimate.
Yeah, anti-penultimate.
Is this the one?
That's the word of the day. Okay. Well, no, anti-penultimate, whatever you decide.
Okay. Then this is it.
I have no say in what's the anti-penultimate.
wasn't sure if it was yours.
I only have a request for what the last one is. Everything else is up to you.
Okay, yeah. The last one's still the last one? Okay. This is Trinity College.
Okay.
The old Trinity College.
Because I know where the new Trinity College is.
If you know Trinity Bellwoods Park,
yeah,
this is what was there before.
Like that was in the park?
This was in the park. The park is huge, and this was just in a part of it. But yeah, this was there. And since this was torn down, it was built in 1852. Kivas Tully was the architect. He was very famous in Toronto for building a few of these old buildings. And they tore it down in the 1950s when they built basically a replica. I forget where it is on the campus, but it's on the campus in a new location. It looks very much the same as this today.
I bike through Trinity Bellwoods quite a bit, and it's got the gateway, right, which is sort of looks.
Yeah, the gateway.
Like
it was the original gateway there, and they've made it a replica now. And the gateway they preserve somewhere else. But yeah, the gates are the gates that were there when this was there because it's got that similar look.
When did we decide to demolish that beautiful building?
In the 1950s. I'm not sure exactly which year. It probably took them a while to do that, but. Yeah.
Toronto ain't got no class, like no sense of beauty. Come on, what's going on here?
So in 1925 is when they moved to the new facility. But yeah, it didn't get demolished until the 50s. I think they'd wanted to keep it as well, but it didn't work out over time.
Andy says, not to be confused with Andrew Ward, who's also kind of an Andy, but Andy, Degrassi fanatic, has a sketch of that building hanging in her home.
Oh, very cool.
Okay, yeah,
That's
very,
incredible.
very cool.
It's a beautiful building to have up on your wall.
Bellwoods. Wow. Okay. So before because again, I do want to ask you something regarding Toronto Mic'd, but I do want to go back to my notes because I don't want to miss these things.
Yeah.
So, no, I need to see the penultimate before I can decide you missed anything that was people wanted. So I actually need to wait for that. Excuse me. But here is a few buildings that hopefully do not get demolished. I was thinking of, and here's one here that you and I grew up going to with our schools. Okay, but the McLaughlin Planetarium, like, I don't know what's going on there now. It's still there. I have such fond memories of the McLaughlin Planetarium.
Same here. Yeah.
I don't fully understand why it had to be shuttered to begin with, and now it just kind of lingers there, and then I feel like one day I'm going to hear there's an announcement to demolish it and build something else. But that's a building I would love to see resurrected and revitalized, and not just for Laser Floyd, but for all the stuff. I saw so many great astronomy things and learned so much, and I loved the McLaughlin Planetarium.
Oh, same here, and it had that eerie feeling when they did play some documentaries about space, and they'd have those space sounds and that sort of thing. There was something similar at the Science Center, and it just gave you this sense of, wow, we are so small in this universe, and it was just awe-inspiring.
Well, there's another one. You just mentioned the Ontario Science Center,
yes.
And that's another building that I hope survives all this current turmoil with. Another place that I don't know what part I'm referring to specifically. I guess it's the Cinesphere and everything, but Ontario Place as a whole, and then the Ontario Science Center, in the news for all the wrong reasons lately, but these are places I would love to see preserved. Same
here. There's so many memories of school trips and just fun times tied up in those. There's that sentimental value, but there's also just the architectural greatness of these places that really can't be replicated today. Raymond Moriyama building the Science Center, he basically said before he died, that place could last 200 years and have no problems.
Right.
But I know it's built on a hill. You're going to have problems no matter what. And their big thing now is like, oh, that bridge isn't safe. You can't go across there. And we're going to hire all these shuttle bus people to bring you around. I think they're trying to make it as annoying as they can to be there.
That is a move, right? Like where you starve out the health system until people are like, this is broken. We need radical fixing. And it's basically, you basically destroy it so that you can justify the overhaul.
And the people that work there are incredible, and they're just making the best of what they can. And I feel for them because there's a lot of exhibits shut down, and they just don't want to give the money to it. Now
you mentioned you grew up in Scarborough.
Yes.
So I often on this podcast we talk about the East of Yonge set versus the West of Yonge sect.
Yes.
And of course I do belong into the West of Yonge sect. My whole life I've lived west of Yonge. Even when I lived on Yonge, it was on, which I rode by yesterday, 30 Charles Street West I lived at for a little bit, and it was on the west side of Yonge Street. So I've never lived east of there in my entire life. But the Science Center was a destination, a place that we would go that was east of Yonge.
Yeah.
Like I always felt like east of Yonge people had to always come west of Yonge to go for not all, but for the vast majority of concerts and sporting events and a lot of the activities, Science Center and the CNE, and we could go on and on of all the stuff going on west of Yonge. But it just seemed like, hey, here's something. We're going to come to you now.
Yeah. And
it just seems wrong that we're just going to rip it away and it's going to end up if it ends up at Ontario Place or wherever the heck the Ontario Science Center ends up.
I think with the traffic problems that they do have during any event downtown now already, you're going to add another down there, and it's ridiculous. Why not have it spread out a bit? Like, are you going to bring the zoo down
Share
there
the
next?
love, right? Yeah, the zoo. I mentioned the zoo when you said Scarborough because it's literally the only Scarborough destination I remember as a kid was the zoo.
Yeah. It's one of the claims to fame for Scarborough being the Toronto Zoo, but before that it was at Riverdale.
We have our High Park. Yeah, right. Was it? Okay.
It was Riverdale Park. That was the zoo back in the day.
Okay, because we have a High Park Zoo
yes.
that I would bring the little ones to who didn't at the time would be like, oh, there's a yak. Like it's like, oh, this is just like the big zoo. We have yaks here.
I guess the
peacocks.
The High Park Zoo was around
Capybaras.
about the same length of time as the Riverdale one was, but anytime they'd mention the Toronto Zoo, it would be about the Riverdale one.
Okay, interesting. One more place that, again, it's all about my bike rides here. You're going to learn here, but this is my segment here. But the Oculus Pavilion, that is, some people think of it as like the spaceship looking thing you pass by on the Humber Trail.
It recently got some love. They did some much needed repairs on it and fixed it up. So it's looking pretty good now.
So they're like, and again, there's sometimes they put these designations on buildings where you're not allowed to mess with it. So is that in a good, like, is there a historical designation for the Oculus Pavilion that would prevent them from destroying it?
Well, a lot of people get comfortable when they hear something has a designation, and I wouldn't be surprised if anything happened to anything right now. The way that laws are being stripped away by our current provincial government, a lot of environmental protections and historical protections are currently being torn away.
Oh, it's like that Simpsons episode when Timber, remember? Because he opens up the suitcase full of money. There's always ways to get around these environmental laws.
Follow the money.
Right. Oh, that was a great episode, actually. That was based on Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I think. But that's a great episode. Okay. Cesspool on the Potomac. I think that was the name of the speech. Okay. One more. I mentioned I got married at Old City Hall. I like Old City Hall being there. I just want to ensure Old City Hall gets to live to fight for another century.
It was another one that came very close to being torn down. In the original plans for Eaton Center, they wanted to get rid of it completely, and that would be another section of the Eaton Center. And eventually people fought and basically came one step from chaining themselves to the building, and they won. And it's amazingly surviving today. And now they're trying to find viability for it now that the courts aren't in there. And I really do hope that it is turned into a Toronto museum, because it would be great to have a showcase like that right besides, New City Hall, and feature a lot of the things that are mothballed right now in warehouses that I've seen personally, that it's just amazing. It's like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark with Indiana Jones, where at the end they push the ark down this massive storehouse of just everything that's ever been classified. And it's kind of like that with Toronto. Like we don't get to really show a lot of what we have, and it would be a cool show place to have that there.
We just had the eclipse, as you know, Was that Monday? It was Monday, right? It's all a blur now. So we have our solar eclipse here, and we got the kids all excited about it. And I played the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark when Bellic's face melts to tell them.
God. And then you said good night.
If I said, "This is what happens if you don't wear the glasses when you're staring at the eclipse,"
the goggles do nothing.
That's right. Thank you for dropping the Simpsons episode. Because did you know
that was more liquid though?
Oh, there was. That's right. But there is a Simpsons episode that I did also watch with the kids where Marge. They have 3 of these. What are they called when you build the contraption? That's pinhole cameras. Is that what they are? What are they called? Okay, so the Simpsons did this. They built 3 of these things to watch their eclipse. But then, no, they built 4 of them. Sorry, and then Homer broke his. So Marge lent him hers, and then they was talking about how amazing it was, and Marge couldn't resist. She's like, "I have to see this," and she looked at it bare-eyed, and then her eyes they harden and turn bright red, and she basically loses her eyesight instantly from staring at the eclipse here. Okay.
Oh man, she trumped it.
Well, unfortunately, apparently he can still see, but that's another story for another day. Okay. Very important. So I just saw a comment on the live stream that I have Medusa hair. I actually don't know what my hair is doing right now. I am probably going to go visit Andy, the FOTM barber, and get this thing tamed. But is this Medusa hair?
No. I've seen some of your older photos and was like, wow, he shaved it all off? Like, that looks cool. I don't know.
Not Medusa
I like
hair. Okay. Shame on you.
In person, it's not Medusa. No, I'm not turning into stone. I'm good.
Thank you very much here. Okay, let's look at this is the penultimate. That means this is the second last.
Yes.
And then I'll know what was missed, and then I can talk about some FOTM submissions.
Now, this one was a little influenced by the Toronto Firefighters Historical Society. They said to me, "I hope there's a fire station there," and I was like, "Oh, there isn't, but I could put one." This is old fire hall number.
Did they threaten you? We're gonna
no, they didn't threaten me.
Arson?
No, they're just great guys. I've met them before. They have the old fire trucks out and at events and stuff, and I've posed with their stuff and talked with them. They're great people. Okay. So I was like, oh, I'll throw one in there.
I don't want people threatening you.
This might not be the ultimate one that they want to put in there, but we're not doing the ultimate today. But this is what the Toronto Fire Department, when they were established, they took this older fire hall and they called this Toronto Fire Station number 1. And it was right across the street from the, right at Bay and Temperance, right across the street from the Temple building, on the kitty corner from it, like on the other corner. And it wasn't a very remarkable building or anything. It started off very small, but it was built in the 1850s. So this was all horse-drawn wagons and just very small fire departments, that sort of thing. They weren't really regulated like they are now. It was towns would make their own fire halls, or they'd have their own volunteer bucket brigades and that sort of thing. But when Toronto came in and made their own fire department, they redesignated a lot of these older halls, and this became number 1 at Bay and Temperance. So it actually was torn down very early, though, because this was only really meant for horses and carts and that sort of thing. So as bigger equipment evolves, some of the stations they can adapt, and a lot of the old stations are still there. But this one, I guess they couldn't adapt by 1924. They were just like, oh, that's it. We'll tear it down, and they put another building there, and it ended up being a skyscraper. But another reason I wanted to do this one is because of the Great Toronto Fire having its 120th anniversary on April 19th, which is coming up very soon, actually. And this building, with all of its bays across the front here, if you look at it, I think its claim to fame is it's the very first film of Toronto ever being filmed was in 1904 for that fire. And a person by the name of George Scott, it was a George Scott company, came to film.
George C. Scott, of course.
and they actually filmed a fire wagon coming down Bay Street right by this building, and you can see it off to the right, all the bays there, and some of the firefighters standing around, because I think they tried to shoot a few scenes the next day to sort of fill in the fire scenes that they didn't really have too much of.
Wow. Where did you get all these photos?
A lot of these are from the City of Toronto Archives, from the Toronto Public Library, which thankfully just got their archival site back up again because of the cyber attack. They really were down, but they have some good quality photos, and you can print them off. You can also order reproductions from them, and
amazing. It's just, I think you put in great effort here. So now we have only one to go.
Yes, one more. So I think that's all I had to say about that one.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was expanded. Oh yeah, originally it started with only one side of this, and then expanded over the years. I think that's the only other thing I wanted to say.
I want to say something, though. I want to ask you, Jeremy Hopkin.
Yes.
And I think I've alluded to this in the past, but this is the official request, the official ask. But I think you'd be perfect if you were the official Toronto historian of the Toronto Mic'd podcast.
That would be so cool.
And okay,
I would love to.
So we talked about you coming on ever since I met you at TMLX 14 at Palma's Kitchen last December. We talked about you coming on for a proper episode. And I said to you, how do you feel about talking about the 10 buildings we demolished that we shouldn't have demolished? And I picked that topic because of how personally interested I am in this. Like, I am so interested in the build when I learn and see the buildings that I can't see anymore, but we're here. It's like, oh, that was there and now it's gone. Like, I'm just so interested. So you were into the topic, which I think is amazing. But we could have different themes. I won't put any timeline on it, but maybe even if every quarter you drop by to get your Great Lakes beer, to get your lasagna, to get your Ridley Funeral Home measuring tape, to get your Monera speaker, and another gift you'll be getting in a moment. You drop by and just kind of educate us, and we talk about whatever the theme is, Toronto's history. What do you say?
I would love to. And the opportunity to spread more of Toronto history, I enjoy the chance. It's just so fun to talk about this stuff and talk about it to receptive people that like to learn and hear about it. And yeah, it would be wonderful.
And I think I said, okay, we're going to talk about 10 Toronto buildings that should not have been demolished. And I said, I put in like a wink, wink. I would love one to be this building, which we're going to talk about in a moment here. Mm-hmm. So, but Garnet Barnsdale, he's a good FOTM, huge horse racing fan. He listens to Down the Stretch, the definitive Ontario horse racing podcast, which comes from the great FOTM Hall of Famer Peter Gross. Garnet Barnsdale said, if Greenwood Racetrack isn't on there, it should be number 11.
Oh, boy.
So shout out to Greenwood Racetrack.
I have memories of Greenwood Racetrack and of the restaurants that used to serve it there. There used to be the Tulip and a few other old restaurants that were there that we'd go and hang out at, and it had such a long history of people hanging out there and experiencing that. But unfortunately, that's not in the list today. I was thinking about doing a surprise 11 just to make it, the 11 on the amp, but no, I didn't today.
Well, they're making a new Spinal Tap, right? Did I read that?
I've read that too, and I thought it was maybe AI.
Speaking of great Simpsons
giving
episodes.
me music.
Don't get me started on AI. So that was Garnet Barnsdale, and there was in the live chat, I didn't take down who was saying all this stuff. It might have been a conversation between like Tyler and Andrew. I'm not sure anymore.
Okay.
But Honest Ed's Warehouse, that's gone now, right?
Yes, it's and
because my grandmother used to take me there. Is like basically this would be like if we needed a fancy dinner, like there was no fancier place my grandmother could envision in the city than Honest Ed's Warehouse.
Oh, that's it had its glam charm. It had a lot of cool old antiques and a lot of things. Well, there's a few restaurants there at one point, and it was pretty cool. And I remember going there with my family way back, and I think in one of the restaurants there, they always forced you to wear a suit or wear a suit jacket
like
at least.
That. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you didn't have one, they'd put one on you.
Right. No, I have memories of this as well, and that's part of old Toronto that's now gone. But speaking of gone, we talked about saving the signs. The Honest Ed sign. Where is that hanging right now? Is that?
It's currently being restored. Okay. One of the signs was saved actually by David Mervish. And he's going to have it reinstalled, or the plan was to reinstall it on Victoria Street, right on the back of Mervish Theatre.
Okay, so shout out to Honest Ed's, because we talked about Honest Ed's Warehouse, the Big Bop, Crocodile Rock, the original Second City, not demolished, says Tyler, but literally moved, and then they moved out anyway. So I guess
another fire hall story right there. They were in the fire hall on Lombard Street. It was the Second City when they came here, and that was a good repurposing of the venue. And at the current Second City, they've actually got a stage. I think it's called Stage 76 or something like that. I forget what year it was, but they made it look like the old fire hall. So when you go there to sit for a comedy act, it looks like the bays for the old Lombard Street fire hall.
Amazing. And now we have arrived, the moment of truth. This is it. We are going to talk about, again, no particular order, but we're going to close with a building, a structure that has been demolished that we wish was not demolished. Let's hear from you, Jeremy.
Okay. Here we go. This is the Maple Leaf Stadium, and it's not for hockey.
Not for hockey.
A lot of people, when they hear Maple Leafs, they think hockey, but it has, I think, an even longer story as being a baseball team. And
Definitely, yeah.
And for years, this team was on the island at a couple of stadiums that were built out of wood, and it was run by Lal Solomon and a few other people, but he also owned the ferry company that could get you there. So if you wanted to go see a game, you were going to pay him money too, as well, to go on his ferry.
And some guy hit his first professional home run there.
Yeah, some guy named Babe Ruth kind of knocked a ball into the water there, and a few people have searched for it and they've never found it. But his first professional home run was hit there on the island into the water, and there is a memorial there for it.
I think he was the Providence Grays, I want to say.
I think that's the name.
That's in my head anyway. But that alone, like if you step back and just drink that in, okay, so Babe Ruth, who hit, I think it was 714 career home runs, but we're going back to an era when they were playing 154 games a season, and he was hitting home runs at a pace where like other teams weren't matching his home run output. Like unbelievable slugger, Babe George Herman Ruth. His first professional home run hit on the island. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was incredible. I was invited to go to that event for the plaque, and I didn't make it out to it. I forget what happened that day, but I wanted to go see them put it there, but it's still there. So you can go see the plaque on the island. But this stadium, though, when you look at it, you think that's a classic baseball stadium. That's just what they should all look like.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're in Canada, so we're right on the lake. Things get cold. You'd have problems with it like you would with the Blue Jays Stadium.
Exhibition
at
stadium?
Exhibition, yeah. Right. Where you'd get fog rolling in off the lake, or snow. The very first game at the Exhibition Stadium, it snowed in April.
Yeah.
So
April 7, 1977.
So yeah, that's eventually what led to them wanting to make the dome, because then they could control the elements a bit and have their way with it.
Pre-dome, okay, so the Jays arrive in 1977. When do they demolish Maple Leaf Stadium?
So this lasted from 1926 to 1967. And by that point, the team had been sold off a couple times, and there was really just no use for it. It became a bit of a hazard. Kids were getting into it, so that led to its demolition. But it, too, was a solid building that really could have lasted many more years.
And geographically, there's a street called Stadium Road, right? That's to signify where this once stood, right? I understand it when I try to understand where it was. I think it's where the Tip Top Tailors was, which is gone, by the way. Yeah. But the sign, see, it's all about the freaking signs in the city. But the sign remains. There's the condo tower there that has
Tip Top Lofts. Yeah,
right. The tip. Thank you. Okay, but that's about where we're talking, right, on the waterfront.
Yeah, it was right beside that, at the foot of Bathurst Street, right by where the flagship Loblaw store is. It was sort of kitty corner to that, and even that Loblaw store, I thought that was going to be torn down, but they completely rebuilt it. Took it down brick by brick and then reassembled it. But,
every time I see these old photos of the Maple Leaf Stadium, I think, what a cool photo. Like, it's like straight out of like The Natural or something like that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned that stadium, was it till 67?
1967. So yeah, not long after that.
Right. So that's exactly right. So you've touched the book that is the Toronto Maple Leafs history book. That is the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. You're taking that home with you, Jeremy. And if I may, they've been at Christie Pitts, I believe, since 1969. I want to say that team has been at Christie Pitts.
Just 2 years after the other one closed down.
Right. So everything's kind of connected here. And the home game, the debut of the 2024 season, the season starts May 12th at Christie Pitts. And this is a call to you, Jeremy, and everybody listening. Come to Christie Pitts on May 12th. It's a Sunday at 2 p.m. The first Maple Leafs baseball game of the season. Rob Butler is the manager of this team. I'm bringing out a whole bunch of cool FOTMs to hang, and I'm going to see if I can get Biff naked to sing the national anthem. I'm working on that. We got Rick Emmett coming out, Steve Paikin, Peter Gross, Mark Hebscher, Blair Packham, a whole bunch of others. Rod Black, of course, will be there. He's growing a mustache for the event. I understand the great Rick Vive is going to be there, and some other surprises that I think people will dig. And I would love to see everybody out there. I'm going to have my recording equipment set up so people can come by and say hi on the microphone. Stephen Brunt is making the trip from Hamilton, so if you want to meet Stephen Brunt, this is your chance. May 12th, Christie Pitts, Toronto Maple Leafs baseball, get into it. And because I feel I haven't been mentioning this, because I assume people know, you don't have to buy a ticket. I just want to bring this home, okay? You just have to show up at Christie Pitts, Christie and Bloor, and take in some of the best baseball outside the dome. Best baseball in the country outside the dome. That's where you got to be. Jeremy, will you be able to make it?
I'm going to try. There's a few things happening that day, including Mother's Day, but my mom likes baseball, so
well, bring out
I don't
mom.
know.
They're going to have pink flowers. There's going to be flowers for the moms. There's going to be swag. It's going to be a good time. So if you can fit in a trip to Christie Pitts on May 12th, that's amazing. And I think you, as a Toronto historian, you're going to love that book, the history of there's such a wild and amazing, wonderful history of this team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Everybody thinks Leafs. They think, oh, Austin Matthews got his 65th goal yesterday. Will he get to 70? That's a whole separate conversation. But this team predates that team, and it's the best baseball outside the dome, and it's been very exciting to work with them the last couple of months.
Nice. Well, one thing I know they're not affiliated with the old team at all, really, are they? It's just by name and sort of by look, right?
Well, it's an IBL team now, which is it's a different so it's a
different league.
It's different league, so it's kind of tough to compare the apples and oranges. But
Right.
the branding, the actual name of the team is the one consistency for sure.
They
And,
carry on that look and that feel, and it's more like the old school baseball, I guess, or
Yeah, you'll dig it,
Cool.
and everybody who likes a good baseball game should come out and check them out. And I'm glad we got to close with the Maple Leaf Stadium. I've written about it on my blog a few times whenever I encounter these photos from the you mentioned the TPL has the great historical photos and everything. It's kind of hard to believe that this place existed before we were born, but that this was there. And you can talk to people. I've had guests on like Larry Milson and stuff who talk about going to these games as a kid, and they tell you the story of how it just sounds amazing. Sparky Anderson's there. And it's like, this is happening. And at some point, it stopped happening. And then in 1977, we got our team and they played at Exhibition Stadium. And then since 1989, they've been at the Dome. There's been a lot of discussion about, work done inside the Dome. Have you caught any Blue Jays actions since they came home a couple of days ago?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm just curious what you think. I've been watching. They have this. It looks different. Like when you watch on TV, it doesn't look like the Dome we grew up with.
I did see some pictures of it, and people are commenting about the backgrounds and all that sort of thing.
to
And
me,
the advertising's a little odd. And
Well, it looks different. It just doesn't look like the Dome. Which I was watching. I was at a sports bar thing. My kid turned 10 years old yesterday, and we went to this place
Happy
called
birthday.
Game Time. So happy birthday to Jarvis. And the game, there was funny, they had these 3 big screens. I was there, 3 of my 4 kids were there, and my mom was there, and of course my wife was there, and then they had these 3 big screens, and one had the Raptor game on, okay, whatever. And then the Leafs game, which is kind of exciting because Will Austin hit 70, that's kind of exciting. And then the Jays game, which I was kind of focused on, and it did not look like the Dome, and that's fine. But they have this, when you watch it on TV now, they have this section. The TD is obviously the sponsor. There's TD logos all over the place. And the seats are very wide and high, and there's very spacious. So it just seems like, to me, it's a bit, it's a bit of a monument to like wealth and commerce.
Oh, yeah.
Like the extreme rich people will be seen throughout the game in these seats, and one of them happens to be Geddy Lee from Rush, and then you have the home plate lady and the guy who runs Canada Goose, and you kind of like it just seems a little off-putting when you're trying to take in your baseball games. So none of that ambiance on May 12th at Christie Pitts.
You wonder how much of that a pitcher could complain about, like if it became distracting at one point where it's like there's too much advertising there and it's throwing me off. Maybe.
No, they're used to it, but I think,
okay.
and then they remember, oh yeah, that's what pays my monster salary. So, and I will thank you just before I play you out with some Lowest of the Low, a great Toronto band, but you did a hell of a job promoting your appearance on social media. Like,
thank you so much.
And various channels too, because you tagged me in it, so I would be inundated. It was, I think I got it. Do you want to shout out all the social media channels where you promoted this appearance? Like, can you name them all?
Oh boy. Okay, so Facebook, Instagram, let's see, Threads, Blue Sky.
Blue Sky, yeah.
And what's the last one there that I have? I've kind of spread myself thin lately.
Well, Twitter.
But Twitter. Now X. I actually tried to kick X, but it drew me back in because people still talk to me nice there, and I haven't had any of the negative stuff that a lot of people have had. So
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to move on too, but I'm still there primarily because that's where a lot of the people I engage with are. So it's like sort of the one thing missing. And I like Blue Sky fine, but there's far fewer people there to engage with.
Exactly. A lot of business is still stuck with X, and it's just how things are. And a lot of people don't want to fuel Elon Musk, but
no,
it's still happening.
No, I won't buy a Tesla. How's that? Now let me play the song that you've been using in your social media promotion.
Oh, cool.
We'll play it because I want to talk to you about this on our way out here.
They passed an ordinance in the town. They said we'd have to tear it down. That little old shack out back's so dear to me. Though the health department said its day was over and dead, it will stand forever in my memory. Don't let them tear that little brown building down. Don't let them tear that precious building down. Don't let them tear that dear old building down. There's not another like it in the country or the town. It was not
Okay,
so long
where did you
ago
discover
that
this
I went
song?
tripping through the
And what is this song? I only learned about it when I heard it in one of your video promotions for your appearance, and I thought it was perfect for this topic.
It's a tribute to the little old brown shack, and I was familiar with it from some other artists. It's been covered by a lot of people, but a lot of people think it's about tearing an actual historic building down or something like that, but this is just a sentimental building because it's the outhouse. And talking about how all his family were there before him and did all this stuff, and yeah, it just kicked, and it appealed to my dry dad joke humor. And I went, wow, that's a bit of a not irony. I don't know what it would be. It was just quirky. I liked it.
I dig it. We're going to have a cold open for this episode where I use a little bit of it. Andy on the live stream, just as we say goodbye, she says she loved your Twitter account, and she is so glad that you created a Blue Sky account so she can follow you there. So Andy and others are following you on the Blue Sky.
Oh, amazing.
And remind us again, so it's under your name, Jeremy Hopkin?
Yeah, it's either Jeremy Hopkin or Hopkin Design, where I wasn't able to get Jeremy Hopkin because there are some other Jeremy Hopkins around the world, a lot in Wales, I guess, and other places where they have that name.
What an absolute pleasure for me. I can't wait for you to put on the hat for the photo we're going to take by the Toronto Tree.
Oh, I can't wait till the Toronto Tree.
Shout out to Dave Thomas. It's a beautiful day out there. I don't know what we'll hit because we have the lake effect down here, but if I go a little north, I'm sure it'll be like 17 degrees today. So yesterday was a funny day. I was up at, where was I? Dundas and Bathurst on a bike ride, and I was so hot. And I realized it's because the way I dressed for the bike ride was how I needed to dress to leave New Toronto. It was, I can't tell you at this time of year what the difference is. Even last night, I could feel it, like coming, once I kind of cleared like Queensway, and then you're just like, oh my goodness. I think we're talking about a good 7-8 degree swing.
Oh, wow.
From like up Bathurst and Dundas to where you are right now.
Yeah, that lake effect really does play a big part, and it can calm things and make things a lot more pleasant down by the lake than it is
on a
just
hot
bit
day.
north.
But on a day like this, you don't want it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. But I will shout out Lake Effect, though, is a Great Lakes beer that you can buy.
So this is the part where I drop a mind blow or something, right? So that we have to
you have
to
one?
turn the music off. No, I have a bit of
that
one.
does happen quite a bit. So you do hear quite a bit of Toronto Mic'd episodes, right? But that is a thing. Or
I love it when that happens. It's like a mic drop, and then everything goes dead, and you're like, oh wait, this episode's going longer.
which is fine. I'll bring down the song for a Moose Grumpy has arrived. I feel like the party can start now. Moose Grumpy's late to the party, but she's had a morning. She just says sorry that she missed this live stream, but of course I recorded it for Toronto Mic'd, and it'll be in the feed in mere minutes. But thank you, Jeremy. Hell of a debut, and we'll get you back. And you can, of course, suggest the theme.
Okay.
You're the historian.
I'll try to rack my brain, come up with something for some ongoing themes. And thank you so much for this chance. It's been a lot of fun.
And if any listener has a suggestion, they want Jeremy Hopkin to tackle a different like Toronto history theme, yeah, just let me know. Many ways to reach us, and you can write me an email, mike@torontomike.com, and we'll get Jeremy back in a few months to do it again.
And it's good, too, because it helps break me out of my shell. If I'm sort of stuck on the East End a lot, it drags me out to the West and makes me think about more things than I've been thinking about. So I love suggestions.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,468th show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike, and you can find Jeremy Hopkin all over the place. If he's not under Jeremy Hopkin, he's going to be under Hopkin Design. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. Jeremy's got his fresh craft beer here. Palma Pasta, don't leave without your lasagna. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Raymond James Canada, subscribe to The Advantaged Investor. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team come out on May 12th, and Jeremy's got his history book. Moneris, Season 6 of Yes We Are Open is dropping now. And Ridley Funeral Home, Pillars of the Community. See you all tomorrow when my special guest is... It's not tomorrow, but my next guest... This is interesting, doing something different. It's called FOTM Cast. It's a little meta, but I think you're going to dig it. If you're a fan of this podcast, you're going to love it. Tyler Campbell and Cam Gordon are dropping by for the inaugural FOTM Cast, which will also be a quarterly Toronto Mic'd happening. And I want you guys to listen and tell me what you think, because it's going to be really meta, but really inside baseball. And I think you're going to dig it. See you all then.
Well, I've kissed you in France and I've kissed you in Spain, and I've kissed you in places I better not name, and I've seen the sun go down on Shakra.